important to you, you become a more full presence of who you are, if that makes sense. You get to be more full when you have the freedom to pursue the things that are important to you. And then you retain those things, and that's a big thing. And
Okay.
Okay, so, all right, so is it working now? Okay, all right. Thank you, Kim.
I was gotta make sure I didn't bring the recording over with me.
I think you did, but it's okay. So, yep, just
anything.
I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Hi, Sunday, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But before I was homeschooled, and I used to live in Kansas, and I love public school there. And then we moved, and then I got into public school in Florida. I was miserable. I was absolutely depressed. And then my mom, took me out, and then homeschool started. I'm with Sunday. It did break my spirit because I did not have the freedom that I thought I was going to have. Because when she took me out, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be so free. I can learn whatever. That did not happen until the 7th grade, when my mom was like, okay, now I want to ease you into unschooling. I was like, don't ease me. I'm good. I got freedom now, and I was doing, just, as I said, everything under the sun. I was learning what I wanted. I went everywhere when I wanted to go, and I did so much art and creativity. I got bored of it. I got bored of it. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn math. I was like, I went to my mom, like, what do I do now? I did so much. What happened to school? And that was when my mom was like, oh my God, yes, let's get into school subjects. And that did help me be like, okay, this is going to be a forever thing. Because now, since I found my passions, and since my mom has a new, different way to teach me, this is great. Because with that, I had the confidence and I had the happiness to learn what I wanted and to learn how I wanted to do it. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Hunter. I think I've heard your mom speak on Clubhouse. Is that Tyra or Tara? Is that your mom?
Tyra Hunter, yeah.
Okay, so I think I've heard some background from her. So that's great. I think I could put 2 and 2 together now. Thank you. Yeah. It's great hearing from you all. Thank you.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
First of all, Sunday, that was absolutely beautiful. I was just like smiling the whole time. I loved listening. You described that perfectly. And then Zoe just added to it. So really, I just want to comment because this is a very, very common question. And I get asked this a lot because I coach parents in unschooling and I have a page and I blog and stuff. So it's very common people asking, like, kids who did get some schooling, do you feel like you needed that structure? Or do you feel like it helped you when you got to unschooling? And the way that I hear that question, and this might sound a little bit harsh, but the way that I hear that question and what people don't realize that they're asking is, do you feel like you needed other people to force you to do things that you're uncomfortable with, unready for, or uninterested in to be okay? And no one needs that. No one needs to be forced against their will to do anything that they're uncomfortable with. No matter what it is, no one needs that. All anyone ever needs is to be told that they are capable, that they are intelligent enough to make those choices, that they are wise, that they are good, that they are trustworthy, and that they themselves know what is right for themselves in their life. We don't need other people telling us that we don't know what's good for us and that we need to listen to a higher authority and let them make us do things that we are not comfortable with. So that's how I hear that question. It's not structure. Being forced to do things that you don't want to do is not structure. it's manipulation and coercion, and it's disrespect, and it's not based on love or on passion or joy or discovery or learning. So that's my comment.
Thank
I
you.
know we have to get to the next question, but I want to chime in one last thing. I was actually having a discussion with my younger brother a few weeks ago, and he was building, we built a raised garden bed together, and he had to use like a saw and like a hammer. We didn't have any power tools. And so later on we were talking about unschooling, and his opinion on it was, well, if you unschool, how are you ever going to know to do the things you don't want to do? And I was like, well, didn't you wanted to build a raised garden bed, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, I wanted to do that. And I was like, but you didn't want to use a saw, and you didn't want to use nails and a hammer, but you did it, and you figured out how to do it because it was something that you felt passionate about, something that you knew you wanted to do. So you figured out how many you needed, you figured out the structure you needed, you figured out the best place for it to be. And we dealt with the incline and the uneven logs and all the things you wouldn't have to deal with if we used power tools and leveled everything, right? But you did it because it was something you wanted to do. So just to throw that out there, just to say that when people want to do something, they do the things that they don't like doing because they want to get to that goal.
Yeah, thank you.
That was great. Thank you. Okay, Nakia, I see your hand is still up. Did you have an extension to your
Oh.
question?
No, let me lower that down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Natalia.
Hi, you guys are amazing. Thank you. I have 3 kids. They're 7, 10, and 13. We just started homeschooling this year, and it's been a woozy. You know, I always knew that I couldn't like force them to do things that they don't want to do, but at the same time, we kind of arrived at a space where they would just sit around being bored, and they were like, or you know, they're like, well, what are we supposed to do, you know? And so we've just kind of like been in this limbo. You know, we have moved twice in the last year, and I ended up being the only parent that's available to be with them right now. And my kids are I don't feel like they really I'm not sure, like they don't seem to gravitate towards art, I guess is what I'm saying. So I so we're like in this limbo, like they seem to, it's kind of sad realization to me, even though they were used to go to Montessori school, that like they still, and where learning is supposed to be self-directed, that they still are asking for someone to teach them. But I'm not like, how do I expose, like we're on the farm. I don't know if they want to be farmers, you know, like that's not, you know, so like I feel pretty isolated at the moment. Like how are they going to figure out their interests, like if they, you know, anyway, it's just like a really uncomfortable place. And I do cry like almost every day. And I am hoping, you know, like on one hand we've gotten closer, but on the other hand, it's been also hard. I don't want to break my kid's spirit. I mean, that's like the opposite of, and yet like, so I hope like it sounds like you've repaired your relationships with your moms who are like trying to figure this out. And 2, like, you know, what do I do? What, you know, or, you know, and then I guess the other option is just to let them play, you know, whatever, the video games, which I feel like they play them quite a lot. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm kind of hanging out in limbo at the moment. So I'll take some advice.
So sorry if I confused people. My mom didn't teach me. When I went into subjects, I taught myself. My mom just kind of put the books out there, and they were there when I wanted to learn. But really, I picked it up by myself. If I wanted to learn math, I wanted to learn math. If I wanted to learn history, I wanted to learn the history I wanted to, like Black history and things like that.
Mhm.
But I wasn't taught by my mom. I taught myself and on my own time. So yeah, thank you.
So it sounds like what you're saying is you went on a progression of being, you know, leaving school, having school at home, then being free to do what you wanted to do until you got to a place where you wanted to do more beyond that, and then your mom gave you the resources to do that. So it's almost like now, instead of being forced to learn things, you were learning things as you were compelled to teach yourself those things after
Yes.
you've already exhausted, you know, the one area where you were deeply passionate. And
Yep.
so it sounds like it's kind of and Natalia, I guess I'm going through that same process as you, where the kids don't really know what they want to do, because at such an early age, it was kind of stunted, I guess. I'm speaking for my kids, being conditioned as at an early age to sit and listen and be told what to do. And so it's almost like a muscle that they've got to develop. You know, if you go from living on flat land to living in mountainous, hilly lands, it takes a while to grow those muscles of being able to climb hills. So that's kind of where they are right now. And I guess that's part of the deschooling process, is they've got to kind of, you know, and I'm, you know, and I'm very new in this world as well, but I struggle with, well, when I ask them what they want, they don't know what they want to do. And so do I, you know, choose things for them, or do I just allow them to get to a point where they just sit, they kind of detox, and then now their minds and their spirits are open to be able to get back to who they really are, and their own, you know, true desire. So that's my stab at it. But I would love to hear from you guys, Sunday and Summer.
Sure. First of all, I want to commend both of you, Kim and Natalia, because I think giving a child that freedom and that space to find what is important to them, and realizing that if you force them to do things that they were maybe not made to do, or don't find passion or interest in, realizing that that can break them, and trusting the child enough that they know deep down what's right for them, it takes a lot of courage. And it's not always easy. For instance, my older brother was someone who, on that day when my mom gave us both the freedom to write whatever we wanted on our transcripts, he looked at my mom and was like, "What do I write?" And she was like, "Whatever you want." And he's like, "Well, I need you to tell me what you want me to write." And she was like, "Oh, so this is like going to be a process of discovering who you are," because at that point his spirit had been broken. He had been told for too long what he had to do and what was needed of him. And that's okay. It's okay if that's where you are, because what's important is that this is where you are now. You're now giving your child the freedom and trusting them with this. And so I just want to commend you, because that's not easy. And no one says that it is. And yes, I just want to commend you on that. And then the second thing I wanted to say is, you guys both kind of alluded to it, and you're absolutely right. What you do in that situation is you do offer that child everything that you can. And not in a sense that you teach them everything that you know, but in the sense that you say, "Hey, I realize that you guys don't seem to like art so much. It doesn't really spike your interest. So here, let's learn about coding. Let's learn about computers." Or maybe, "Hey, are you super interested? Would you be interested in, and I see you're not interested in farming, but would you be interested in medicine? Does that interest you?" Or does, I don't even know, like, does scuba diving interest you? Like, I remember my older brother, my mom pitched scuba diving to him and he was over the moon. He was like, "Yes, I'm gonna go to North Carolina. I'm gonna be a scuba diver instructor." And like, he went for that. And he went for that until he discovered enough of himself to realize that that wasn't for him. And now he's discovered that he loves agriculture and he loves medicine and herbs and that lifestyle. He loves that, like the Eastern medicine thing. So what the goal is here, and what your job is in this situation, is to offer them everything that you have. And that's all anyone can ask of you. And then just to trust that child, and to trust that they will stumble upon what is in them to do. Now, something else my mom always says, which I think could be a helpful note for you guys, is as parents, or really, because I'm never been a parent, so I've only like nannied, or, you know, my younger siblings, but with any child, when you look at them and you see them enjoying what they're doing, what is it that they're doing that they're enjoying so much? What are their good experiences, as we call them at the school I work for? What are the things that spark interest in them, the things that they would like to try, the things that they think they would do well, and the things that they would motivate themselves to do? And something in those things is part of who they are on the inside. And so the search to find that, all you have to do is provide them everything that you can provide them, and trust in them, and continue to give them the confidence to say, you will find what you're looking for. And the last thing I want to throw in there is the video games, because I understand to be with kids and you're like, hey, don't you want to go outside? Don't you want to ride your scooter? Don't you want to do this, that, and the third? And all they want to do is watch TV. And all they want to do is play games. But because I've been through that, I also know that there's a point when kids are like, oh my gosh, I've been playing Roblox for 4 hours. I played Roblox yesterday and the day before that, or I played so much Xbox, I don't want to do that anymore. I watch so much TV, with my eyes hurt, I just want to go outside. So there is a point where the things that aren't in a person, even if they're enjoyable things, they will break away from those things to discover new things about themselves. And again, it's that trust and that reassurance in them that you have to put. So I hope that's encouraging, is just keep doing what you're doing because it's right. And it just takes some time and it can be scary, but it's the right thing.
Awesome, thank you.
So I'll
Summer, I don't know if you
Yeah.
can hear us, but you're breaking up a bit. We're not getting a good signal where you are.
okay. I can hear you now. Okay.
Okay, seems to
Let
be
me see.
better now. It's better now.
Okay. I just wanted to say I actually have like a pretty different idea of that than Sunday does. I like what Sunday said, but I have like another approach, you could say, which is just that boredom is highly underrated. And I think it's really important to allow children the time and the space to get really bored. And offering things is wonderful, like Sunday was saying, to provide options. But I've noticed that parents sometimes take that to this level where they're like constantly throwing things at their kids and trying to get their kids interested in things instead of allowing them the space to decompress and to get really bored and do nothing. There is nothing wrong with doing nothing, but adults are terrified. They're terrified of non-productivity, but oftentimes non-productivity is what comes before productivity. So boredom is like the soil of creativity. And sometimes we need that time and that space to develop internally. And it might look like we're not doing anything and we're not learning anything, but we are evolving rapidly on an internal level. So I think that it's important for parents to take a step back sometimes and be like, wow, am I really like intruding on something that's already developing? Am I stepping in on something that really doesn't need to be messed with? And to really give children that time and that space to grow according to their nature and their natural development, that it's not always appropriate to be doing constantly, this constant doing this, what parents can measure as learning. And there was times in my childhood when it looked like I was doing nothing. Or my older brother Clay, for instance, spent a whole winter sitting on the stairs crocheting hats. And all my grandparents were terrified, like he's not doing anything, he's not learning anything. And he recalls that time as being one of the richest, deep personal periods of evolution for himself. So I think it's just something to remember that you don't always have to be offering activity, that sometimes you need to just be quiet. Let there be space, let there be peace, let there be recuperation and recovery, and let them be bored and let the motivation come from them. Let them discover. I mean, have you ever watched a toddler? They're never bored for long. And that doesn't go away. It just disappears occasionally and we forget that it's there. But if you give any child of any age enough time or enough space and you let them get bored enough, eventually they reach for something. They'll reach for that book. They'll reach for that. I know when I get bored enough, I get up and I do something and it will happen eventually. And so a lot of patience on the part of the parents, I think is required. And patience in the sense that you're not waiting for something to happen, but you're literally just allowing allowing the process to unfold as it needs to unfold naturally without you trying to control and direct and make something happen for your child. So.
I love that. I have learned that about boredom, and I realized that as I am deprogramming myself. You know, I spend a lot of time just wandering around, like as an adult. But I feel like the kids don't like, I guess this is what we have gotten video games just this year. So maybe they just need to play a lot. Maybe that's what it is, because they don't want to be bored. And so they just, you know, like if they're bored for like, I don't know, 10 minutes, they're like, well, can we just go play, you know, or whatever games. So,
Well, so the video
know,
game conversation can
and
get
I guess they
pretty,
need to get that out of their system, I suppose, or, you know, maybe that's what I just need to, because I'm wondering if the video games are like actually preventing them from being bored. And maybe I need to let go
I
of that
think that
idea.
video games, I feel like they're a very specific topic, and it's not right for everyone to follow the same process with that. And you're their mother, so you pay attention to your own gut and your own instinct and what is safe and healthy for your unique individual child. And what worked for someone else may not work for you, and what worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. So rely on that connection with your children and really pay attention and observe their state of well-being and their mental health and everything, because it is your job as a parent to help support that. And you'll know if that is what's safe and healthy for your child. Do you need to, because there are some kids that's a good path. There are some kids that need a slightly different path. I know children who they need a little bit of guidance in that area. And there's some children like Sunday who said that she went through that and she got through it and she found her way. So you'll know as the mom for your unique children what's appropriate for them in their particular stage of development. So I really encourage all parents to not just do something because someone said, and to really pay attention to what's safe and healthy for your unique children.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. That was great. Very helpful. Karen, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question. I just had just a comment, a feedback off of what Natalia was saying in terms of her children and boredom. And I think it lends itself to a lot of what we were talking about yesterday with the deschooling. Whenever you transition to such a structured format to an unstructured format, it seems so uncomfortable and unfamiliar. And I remember when my children came out of the summer last summer, I said, we're going to unschool, but I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going to see what they do. And we got through August and then we got into September, and all they wanted to do was watch YouTube and play Roblox on their tablets. And then at some point they literally were like, I am so bored of Roblox, and went and jumped on the trampoline for like 3 hours. And that's all they did. And I said, okay, we've moved on to exercise. And it wasn't me telling them to move on to exercise, and it wasn't me telling them to get off the video games, but it was this realization of, we actually have all this stuff around us. There are other things that we can do. And I think that we have to get to this place as adults where we take a step back and say, we adults have to be productive. There are things that are required of us that we have to get done in a specified amount of time. But when we take that schoolish mindset away from these children and just say, do what you want to do today, and actually allow them to do it and allow ourselves to be okay with them doing it, we'll find that one of the bigger things, or at least I say I found this from my children, is they weren't stressed. All the things that they wanted to do so much, play video games forever, watch YouTube videos forever. The reason why they wanted to do those things in such large quantities is because there was such a restriction on it before, because we have chores to do, or we have schoolwork to do. There's so many other things we have to do. So you can only do this for a specified amount of time. But when they got the freedom to flow in whatever way they wanted to flow, it was astonishing to just see the release in them and the relief in them. And now my 9-year-old is saying, I want to do math, because he wants to do math. And it's something he chose to do. So I think that if you can kind of take that step back and allow them to just be, and not feel like there's something that you should be seeing, something that you should be witnessing, you'll find that you'll be a lot calmer and you'll be able to thrive in this process and in this journey of unschooling.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Karen. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Nakia?
I just want to quickly attest to what Karen is saying, because I hear Natalia, and I sometimes even today I'm still there. We've been homeschooling now for about 2.5 years. And I remember initially thinking, oh, well, I got to figure out what type of learner he is and all this stuff. But you really have to take that time to decompress and de-school and understand the difference between that de-schooling process and the unschooling process. And it sounds to me that you guys right now might still be in the de-schooling process, and just trust the process, because I can attest as well to what Karen is saying. And we're in the stage now where our children just only want to play the games. And my son is there as well. He's an 11-year-old. But I have seen him change and grow to that independence that I would like him to further grow in, from when we first started to now. Now he gets himself up in the morning time. He sets his own alarm for what time he needs to get up in the morning. Like, truthfully, like now he's in Georgia and I'm in Connecticut on a travel assignment. He is doing so well with even me not being there, saying, do this, that. And, it just takes time, is what I would really say. Just give yourself grace, give your children grace. It will come.
Thank you, Nakia. Makes a lot of sense. And that's very liberating to hear. Karen?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just had goosebumps when she was speaking, because I think there's a word that we forget to say to ourselves in parenthood and as mothers, and definitely as unschoolers, is how important that grace is. That grace that you are needing and desiring to give yourself grace, to give yourself grace, and to give yourself space, because it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look like someone else's. I believe I listened to a Clubhouse not too long ago, and one of the women were speaking about after her child started unschooling, she was like, oh, they're going to be like this amazing soap maker and jewelry maker and do all these things. And the kids sat and did nothing but doodled all day. And it was kind of this letdown of, well, I thought if I gave them space, they would be this mastermind. But it's like, is that your purpose? Is that your why? Why did you choose to unschool? Why did you choose this path? Why did you choose this lifestyle? We can look back at what led us there and allow ourselves the grace and space to allow it to happen naturally. We'll let go of some of these preconceived notions of what it should look like for our households and for our children. So grace, grace, and more grace.
Okay, great. Did anyone else have anything else to add, or any more questions of our panelists? I know I wanted to just, and I think it may have been addressed earlier on, but as I have, of the three that I currently have at home right now, the oldest is wanting to start high school. She's just finishing, she just turned 14, and so she would be going into her freshman year at high school, and she really wants to do that. Do you guys have any advice on how I can support her in a way where it's a healthy, have a healthy consideration of it, as well of transitioning into that? Because I'm anticipating that she'll get there and maybe she'll realize it's not what she thought it was. And then, the whole finishing what you start versus coming back in and out, that type of thing. Do you guys have any insight in dealing and helping her through that decision?
I only want to say something about the finishing what you started.
Mhm.
I don't really have a lot to say. I've never been to school. I don't have a lot to personal experience there to share, but whenever a parent says something about, there's always like this kind of, do I teach them that they have to finish what they started? Or do I teach them that they need to follow their heart and do what feels right and comfortable for them, and not force them to do things that they're uncomfortable with only because they tried it and started it. So for me, this kind of like, I've used extreme examples in this situation, but it's kind of like, okay, I'll try not to get too explicit here, but you know, when your daughter's a teenager and she gets a boyfriend or a girlfriend and they're becoming sexually active and they get started and they're in bed and they're naked. And then what do you want her to do? Finish because she started? Or do you want her to say, wait, I'm not ready. I'm uncomfortable with this. I need to stop.
Yeah. Excellent.
And
example.
maybe that's an extreme example, but honestly, I feel like it's all the same. You
Mhm.
either teach them to follow their heart and do what feels right for themselves and say no when they're done,
Mhm.
or you teach them to push through their discomfort and do things that are wrong, that feel wrong for them because they started it. And to me, I don't see how that's ever a good enough reason to finish what you started. I feel like we should be teaching kids to stop when you're done.
Mm.
It's like you're pushing past your own consent, and you're pushing past, you know, parents, adults are constantly pushing past children's consent and teaching them that they have to do things that they're not ready for, that they're uncomfortable with, that they're unwilling to, that they're, you know, just completely go against
Yeah.
everything that feels right for them. I mean, I would want to teach children that they are safe and they can say no at any point in time. And for you to be that safe person that they can come back to. I remember when I was little, and with my mom, and there was a point when it was, I was in hula dancing and I got nervous at the last minute and I didn't want to go on stage.
Mhm.
And my mom, there was no even slightest suggestion that I should do something that I wasn't ready for or comfortable with. It was, of course, darling, absolutely. You do exactly what you need to do for yourself. I'm here for you. You are safe. You are loved. You are cared for. And you don't have to go up there just because.
Yeah.
And I remember that feeling. And you know what that did for me was it created all of this space. And then I went out on that stage because there was all this space and there was safety and there was security and there was trust and no one was pushing me. And when I was just left with my own sense of what was right for myself and no one was going to make me do anything one way or the other, or I didn't have any expectation on me. I didn't feel like my mom wanted me to be one way or the other, or she wanted me to go out on the stage or not go out on the stage. I didn't have any of that, nothing from any direction. I was left with only myself and my sense of what I wanted for myself. And I went out on that stage because I expressed my fear and my discomfort and it was accepted, completely accepted.
Yeah.
And in that no, it dissolved in that space of acceptance. So, I mean, I know that's not exactly what you were asking, but
That's great. That's definitely a great way of looking at it. And, you know, what are we really teaching? And I think that whole notion of finishing what you started comes from not trusting them when they say I'm done, and they genuinely are done, or if it's, or they're being lazy, or they're being wishy-washy, or all of the ideal character traits that we hold, you know, the whole hoorah, push through that, you know, because I have a military background. And so, I mean, as a young woman, I was, you know, 17 years old wearing boots and a rifle. And it was all about, you know, had nothing to do with me, right? It's totally non-consensual activities. But
well, there's a difference when you choose an activity for
Yeah.
yourself. It's kind of like, I think it was mentioned earlier, Sunday had a beautiful story with her brother and how he did things and learned things that he didn't necessarily want to do to get where he wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I have a million examples of that. And so it's like, maybe you didn't necessarily choose to be in the military, but I've had times where I've chosen to participate in something and I've committed. And I've had to go through things I didn't necessarily want to do, but I chose to participate and I chose to complete something myself, not because someone told me that I should,
Mhm.
you know, and I've had to learn things that were really uncomfortable. I wouldn't have chosen to learn, but
Mhm.
it was in the pursuit of a goal of something that I chose for myself. So yeah, and it's not really up to you to decide why, like you were saying,
Yeah.
how do I know that my child is saying no for
Mhm.
the right reasons?
Right.
Basically,
Yeah.
that's not none of your business, really.
Yeah.
Their reasons are their own, and it's not up to you to judge whether those reasons are valid or not.
Mhm.
Their reasons are valid. We all have valid reasons. And so even if they're saying no because they're bored, you need to show them that trust. You need to show them that trust, regardless of their reason. You need to show them that you are that safe place and that they are trustworthy, that they can be trusted to say when they're done with something. And it might be that they're saying, oh, I don't want to do this anymore because they're lazy, but they need that freedom. They need to have that freedom. I need to have that freedom because that's how we learn. We quit because we're lazy, and then maybe we suffer for it later and we're like, God, I should have done that thing. Why did I quit? I just quit because I was lazy. And if you hadn't let them quit because they were lazy, they might not have learned that bit of self-motivation,
Right.
that there are times when they have to step through, because they're going to have their own personal life consequences that you do not need to implement. They will happen naturally. It's kind of like, I was in this ballet class. I loved ballet class. It was what I looked forward to every week. And I had to get myself there on time. I had to have an alarm. I had to watch the clock. My mom was like, do you want me to remind you? And I was like, yes. But then there were times where she was like, I can't keep track of everything, honey. You're going to have to remind me and tell me. And that's literally when I learned the days of the week and how to tell time. And all of that was because I wanted to be at that dance class. And she didn't need to make any of that happen. And then there were times when I would mess up. I remember missing a rehearsal because I didn't set my alarm and I didn't wake up in time to get to a morning rehearsal. And that was on me.
Yeah.
And I learned responsibility and self-motivation because of something I wanted. I didn't need someone teaching me that there would be consequences. The consequences happen.
Yeah.
So
That's good. That's very helpful. Thank you.
I was devastated. I didn't get to that rehearsal. I was devastated. It never happened again.
And you hate to watch your child go through those,
Yeah.
experiences, but again,
Yeah.
that's growth.
Mhm.
There's no growth.
And you also, it's also like my mom was very, very natural in the sense that it was a partnership and it was a friendship.
Mhm.
So of course she would have reminded me had she known. It wasn't like she let me sleep in and let me learn a consequence. She never would have done that to me. That's extremely disrespectful to do to a friend. If you know they need to be somewhere on time and you know they're sleeping in, you're going to go and check on them.
Mhm.
Otherwise, that's an extremely manipulative, sneaky way of teaching someone something. And I would not appreciate my mom doing that to me.
Mhm.
So if she had known, but she didn't, she was having something else. And it was my job to do that. And if she had remembered, she would have woken me up because that's what friends do.
Right. Right.
So it's like having that intention. Like adults are constantly trying to manipulate what their kids are learning. And you're constantly having this agenda, this teaching agenda, and you lose the partnership. You lose the equality and you lose the partnership and you lose the trust.
So would you mind sharing a little bit about your mom's journey? Like how, for her to have raised her children, I guess what, in the 80s, right? 80s, 90s?
I was born in 88. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like how did she, okay. We just got a notification, unschooling little ones. Okay. So we'll close up real quick for those who want to go ahead and join. Okay, Cody, are we going way too over?
No. I mean, we know you had technical, problems in the beginning and started a little late. So we expected you to go a little late. So that's okay. But
Okay.
the other sessions are beginning to stop. I was just popping in to see where you were.
Okay. So if you guys want to go ahead and join the other discussions that have just started a few minutes ago, you can go to the breakout rooms and make your selection. If you have any more questions for our adult panelists, please feel free to hang out for a moment. Otherwise, we'll close out. Unschooling in college has begun. Unschooling for little ones has also begun. And if you click on your breakout rooms, you'll see those options.
Are we free to stay here if we don't care to jump over there?
I would say yes. Is that correct, Cody?
Sure.
We were
Just don't
having
want you to
some.
miss out on the other sessions. We definitely want those who, the college one is a big one, I know, for those who were interested in this particular panel of how it transforms from unschooling into college. So feel free. Yeah, you're not obligated either.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, mine are a little
failed-
young for college, so, and a little old for the little, so I'd love to stay here if we can.
And Natalie, you were saying something, or Natalia?
Yes, I was wondering, other stories of the failed unschooler, was that over? Was that during the session already? Did I miss that?
I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, that was
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was happening. Actually, it's starting now. That's
It's
the
starting
one.
now.
That's starting now. So you can jump down to, that's one
Okay.
of the breakout rooms is happening right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
I'm going to mine. I'm doing the schooling in college. So I'll see you those there who are joining us there.
Okay, thank you, Cody. Okay. Yeah, I just have my burning question, Summer, was just how did your mom get to the place where she was able to live that way with her children in a time like the 70s and 80s? If you don't mind sharing, a snippet of how, what her journey was to get to that place.
Left my coffee pot in the wrong spot. So my mom was 21 when she got pregnant with my oldest brother, Garrett. And let's see, how old is Garrett now? He's like 40. So 40 years ago. And that's a long time. That was back when there was not the term unschooling. That unschooling had not been coined as a phrase. It was not anything anyone had heard about. We hadn't heard about it. So my mom was 21. She was very naive. She had a very normal upbringing. She was also really smart and did really, really well in school. But she said that she always knew that the system was pretty much bullshit. And kind of by high school was just sick of playing the game. She just thought it was really stupid. She was really good at all the schoolwork, straight A's and everything. But she just really lost her motivation. She was just like, this is dumb, and didn't really see the point, and nothing really interested her. There was no passion there for her. Anyway, so had my brother Garrett at 21, didn't know she would do anything different than anyone else, was really kind of just thought she'd be like everyone else, and didn't even know about homeschooling. It wasn't a thing, So it was little by little, and it wasn't just about the education. It was kind of like a lot of things connected at once about natural parenting it was her hospital birth experience, and it was all these things, right? And then it was like not putting him in his crib to cry himself to sleep, and like that feels wrong. And why would I go against what every cell in my body is screaming to hold my baby? Like, why would I deny that? And who says that's a good thing to do anyways? So it really, my mom's super intuitive. She's very, very heart-centered. And luckily she had the wisdom and the courage to follow those gut feelings, that mothering intuition, those instincts, even without a lot of philosophy or knowledge. So she really came from that place. And so it was little by little, it was like, no, I'm going to hold my babies. Like, why would I make them scream? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't see a good enough reason, and it feels totally wrong. So then it was like, put him in daycare. Oh, this is weird. Why would I hand my kid to strangers all day? I actually like hanging out with my kid. And they're treating him like he's an idiot. And, and then he picks up all these weird behaviors from these other kids that never had, it's like all these things. And she was just like, this is strange. We're not doing this. And when I got to be like school age, it was the same thing. It was just like, why would I hand my child over to these so-called experts to be raised by other people, that don't know him, that don't love him individually, that care for him as an individual, and that see who he is, and let other people teach him what they think he should know. Like, who's to say what my kid should or shouldn't know? So it was like these little curiosity questions. It was very simple. That wasn't very like these huge, There was no like massive decision to go, I'm going to unschool. It wasn't like that because that didn't even exist then.
Yeah.
And then homeschooling came into her, somehow homeschooling got introduced, and then it was everyone in the community tried to start a Waldorf school. Like all my cousins went to Waldorf school. And even that, she was like, this just feels strange. It's so controlled. Like, why would I make my kids do things that they don't want to do? She's like, my kids are amazing. And it wasn't just her kids. I mean, she thought kids are amazing. You know, she wasn't saying her kids were different or special. She was just saying that, like, she says that she recognized in us how we learned how to walk and we learned how to talk and how we crawled side of the room to grab that toy. There was self-motivation already, parent instinct to thrive, to be alive, to evolve. And she was like, that's human nature. And she just was like, why wouldn't we trust in that human nature that's already there, that reaches for the spoon and wants to feed themselves? Like, why would that stop? You know, why would that stop? Like at some point, you know, we push away mom's hand and say, no, I want to climb up the stairs. So I want to do it myself. And she's like, why would we think that that would change at a certain age? That doesn't stop. And then she tried to have a little like homeschool thing in her house, and she was just way too radical for everyone around her. And my dad's family, they would have burned her at the stake if they could. I have hellish stories. I mean, my grandma called CPS, tried to have us taken away, saying we were neglected because we weren't sent to school and because we were vegetarian at the time. And then my stepmom actually took us to court to try and force us to public school. My mom was completely slandered, and it was horrible. It was really, really horrible. And the things that I would hear at my dad's house, like, because they split up when I was 1.5, the things that I would hear when I was with my dad's family and the way that they would talk about my mom in front of us and the things that they would say about us. And they instilled a lot of fear in us. And so I can recognize that any points in my childhood that I struggled learning with something, I can directly link them to words from my grandmother, like things that they would say to me, like, well, how are you going to learn how to read if you don't go to school? And luckily I trusted my mom enough to believe her in saying, like, you'll learn when you're ready. But you can't help but having like your own family members affect you and their view of you affect you and their fear. It does affect you. And my older brother struggled with it the hardest because they spent a lot more time with them. By the time I came along, my mom was like done. So my mom was really, really alone. And a lot of people hadn't even heard what homeschooling was, let alone unschooling. But we used to say we were homeschooled just because that's what people understood. So I never had any kind of required academia whatsoever. We never had a workbook or a textbook or I never sat down and purposefully learned anything except when I wanted to learn how to write letters or things like that. And I would have to ask for that from my mom. It would have to come from me. And my mom was really, really what I call non-invasive, extremely non-invasive. She was not worried. She was not concerned for me. And therefore I was not concerned for myself. She had no fear. She had complete knowing that her children were fine. She had complete knowing that we're intelligent, capable human beings. So why would I make them do things when I know they're absolutely perfect, whole, and complete as they are? And so having a mom that sees you that way, that knows, that doesn't even have to trust because she knows. She knows who I am and she knows that I am capable and intelligent. And she acted that way and she treated me that way. And therefore I knew it to be true as well. So when you're not afraid for yourself, when you're not afraid that you're not good enough, when you haven't been treated like there's something wrong with you, because I think a lot of people don't even realize how often they're treating their children as if something is wrong with them. It's like, oh no, I love you and I trust you and you're intelligent and capable, but I'm still going to make you sit here and do this thing because if you don't, you're not going to be okay. And that is completely the opposite message. And children don't listen to just what you say. You know, they feel how you see them, and how you see them dictates how you treat them. and they get those messages. They get those messages. So my mom really just came from this place of knowing who her children were and not being afraid for us. She didn't have the fear that other people do. She wasn't afraid that her children were going to be lazy and live in her basement forever if she didn't make us do something, because she recognized our innate nature and our innate intelligence that was recognized, that was known. And when you recognize that and you know that on that kind of deep level, the fear dissipates. Because what is there to be afraid of? What are parents really afraid of? They're afraid of, this is actually what I said recently in a world schooling conference, was that you're actually afraid of your children. Like, people say they're afraid for them. Well, I'm afraid they won't be successful. I'm afraid they won't. But it's actually like, you're afraid of your children. You're afraid of who your children are, because you do not recognize the brilliance that's already there. You're afraid of who they are. And that comes from, I think, being afraid of who you are, because you lost something along the way. You ended up believing, it's almost like Stockholm syndrome. You ended up believing, well, I needed to be hit to learn. I needed my husband to hit me, otherwise I wouldn't have learned. And that's what people sound like to me who grew up in the school system. Well, I needed to be forced against my will in order, I wouldn't have learned that. And you convince yourself, because that's how you were treated your whole childhood. Like, you weren't good enough, and you weren't smart enough, and you weren't capable, and that you need an outside authority to tell you what to do in order to be okay. Because somehow you are broken, you are wrong, you are not whole. And so what happens is you end up believing that yourself, about yourself. You believe that if I don't force myself, or if someone doesn't force me, I'm never going to do anything. I'll just sit here. I'll just be lazy. I'll never accomplish anything, because you weren't given the chance. You weren't given that space and that freedom to discover your own evolutionary nature, your own internal self-motivation. You weren't given that chance. So you forgot that ever existed, because it probably got squashed when you were around 5 years old, right? 5, 6 years old, usually right in the beginning. And then you started to believe them, because those are your people. Those are your gods. Your parents are your gods. Yeah. And the adults, you believe them, and how they see you is how you end up seeing yourself. And then you grow up like that, and you just pass that on to your children. Yeah. And you end up seeing your children the same way, because you believe that about yourself. So my mom likes to say that for her, this is she says to other moms, like, this is a deep personal journey of self-discovery and forgiveness. And that you have to realize who you are in order to recognize who your children are. And you have to rediscover that true nature of yourself and your own innate intelligence, and recognize that there's nothing wrong with you and you're not broken. Because if you keep coming from that place, you're going to keep putting that also on your children. Yeah. So that's my mom's story. But it, we ended up moving from California to Hawaii when I was 11. And that's when we found a lot more other families. There was other homeschooling families and more supportive community, because where we were in California, we only had like one other family to hang out with. And people often ask me about the whole socialization issue, which cracks me up hardcore, because I don't know what people think socialization is, but it's certainly not what they do in school. Yeah,
it's more indoctrination.
Yeah. So I guess to come back to your original question, it's just my mom really followed her heart. She followed her gut instincts, and she was fortunate enough to discover a couple books along the way that really gave her some recognition. I think when I was a baby, she read Summerhill by A.S. Neal, who started the Summerhill Free School in, I think, Scotland or UK. That's also a brilliant movie on YouTube if anyone wants to watch that. It's not a documentary. It's actually like a really sweet theatrical movie about Summerhill based on actual events. And it's gorgeous. And so my mom had that book, and maybe just a couple, I don't remember what else she had. There wasn't much. There really wasn't much.
I can imagine.
But it came down to less of a mental approach and philosophy on how to get my kids to be a certain way, and more about knowing that her kids were already as they ought to be, and that she didn't need to fix or change us or make us into something. And that life really would teach us everything we needed to know. And it was all about the emotional connection and friendship that I had with my mom and the mutual respect. And because of that, because she prioritized our overall well-being, our mental, physical, spiritual, because she prioritized our well-being and our connection and our emotional connection with her, that came first. That made all the learning possible.
Okay.
Because when you feel whole and safe and loved, anything, you could do anything.
Yeah.
You can do anything, Yeah.
I love it.
So that's what came first. And I feel like oftentimes adults mess that up. And it's like, we will prioritize doing the math work over having a healthy relationship. And when you lose the healthy relationship, I mean, that's just everything. I don't know how people survive, honestly, in the world without my mom. Like, I don't know how anyone, I don't know how any of you are okay without having that relationship in your life, because she was my rock. She was my person. And I feel like if you can be the one for your child, instead of making them wait a lifetime to meet the one person that's going to love and accept them for who they are, like, you can do that now. And we make people spend their whole lives searching for the one, the one that's going to love and accept them for who they are. But you can be the one now. You don't have to make them wait.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's amazing, Summer. Thank you so much. It's like mammal versus lizard, right? Behaving like a mammal versus behaving like a lizard. Oh, all right. I'm overflowing. Does anyone else have anything they want to share or touch on or ask before we?
I just want to say that was amazing,
Mhm.
Summer. That was amazing.
Thanks, Sunday.
It's like you gave a well-rounded picture of how you love somebody.
Mhm.
All of this, it's how you truly love and respect and honor and cherish somebody.
Yes.
And the fact that we section loving somebody in a completely different zone than living life or being educated or being skilled is ludicrous, because all things should be in love.
Yeah.
And they come from love. Yes.
Mhm. It should start and finish there. And all the other stuff is just incidental.
Like, you made all the connections. You just made all the connections in what you just said. That was really astounding.
Thanks, Sunday.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, I hate to I don't want to cut anything off. Is there anything else anyone else has? But otherwise, I'm sure there's some amazing discussions going on in the other breakout rooms. So I invite you guys to select a room and join it, and then hopefully we can see each other again in the main room. But thank you everyone for your contribution. Thank you, Sunday. Thank you, Summer. Thank you, Karen, Nakia. It was so great to hear from you all, and we'll see you in the other rooms.